So in India, over the last few years, Indian telecom market is massively consolidated from 20 plus players to now three. And while this consolidation was going on, Indian telecom tariffs have materially corrected. They're down by about some 80%. And Indian telecom tariffs are now the cheapest in the world. So call it around $15. You could get unlimited data as well as voice for almost a year, which is the cheapest globally. So now post the elections, the expectation is for telecom tariff hikes to come through, especially given that it's a consolidated market now. The common assumption is that the hikes could be 15 to 20% to begin with, and then could sustain at high single digit, year after year going forward. That has led to the excitement for telecom stocks. We've not seen the telecom tariff hikes as yet. It has got pushed out, but our belief is that it will come through and then will sustain, which makes us a bit excited about telecom right now.
Amish, really interesting insights here. And I also want your take on your year-end call for the markets here, particularly for the Nifty 50. 24,500 is the level you'll say will hit by December 24. And I'm curious to just get your take on whether or not you have confidence that that is a forecast you can upgrade at this point. It seems pretty reasonable. It seems as if the market will be able to get there given current momentum. What would you say is the biggest risk to your outlook? And is the RBI a factor that you might not be actively considering here?
Sure, Dan. Is there an upside risk to our target? The answer is yes. What is it dependent on? We think a couple of things. So first of all, the new government is in place. We need to see their policy direction. If they continue to be more focused on upgrading capex or spending their resources on doing more capex as opposed to welfare schemes, that's trigger number one. Number two, there are plenty of legislative reforms required in India, and some I would argue are already in the draft ready stage. If the government chooses to take these reforms forward, I think that is an upside risk number two. On the other hand, what we are worried about is the primary market issuances pipeline is building up. We think that, in the second half of this calendar, there may be a lot of large primary issuances which can suck out liquidity from the market. So that's a little bit of a balancing factor. And then finally, Indian corporate earnings growth has been extremely robust. For the last 4 quarters, we've seen earnings constantly get upgraded. In the fiscal year that we just finished in March, which is FY24, the consensus expectations was to have 15% earnings growth for Nifty. We actually ended up with 19. The consensus is still expecting a similar number. We are conservative. We are working with only 14 for the next year. But if the corporate earnings growth momentum sustains, then I would argue that will add to a positive risk to our Nifty target as well. So 2 or 3 positive factors, a couple of factors that we think can pull back the market. So at the balance, we are talking about 24,500, but there's a possibility that we may have an upside to that risk.